there. We're planting our garden today, and we'd love to have you join us. We have some of our grandchildren with us and some of our children, and we would just love to show you some of the tips that we've learned over the past years, and just hope you enjoy your time with us.
Of course, you know, here at our place, we kind of do a bigger garden every year, even though, you know, it's getting to the point we maybe don't need quite as big a garden, but, you know, we got to do that. So we have a little bit of a rectangular garden. It's laid out. This direction here is south, so south side. So part of laying out the garden in the best way is some things like a little bit more shade, other things need very much full sun. And so a couple of the things we'll do, we're probably gonna, the other thing when you're planting your garden, never plant the same thing in the same place 2 years in a row. Make sure you swap it up. And from our garden, there's one thing that's already in the garden. We have some garlic that we planted in a space where we took something out early. Garlic plants in the fall, so that's already there. We had to till around that. There's a lot of different methods of gardening. You can do, you know, raised beds. You can do, you know, mulch type gardening. This, you know, here we do just classic gardening. This is, we till it in the spring, we till in a little bit of fertilizer, we till in the residue of last year's crop, and then it won't get tilled again. But this will be the basics to get everything started. So as far as the shade goes, we'll probably, since we haven't done it for a long time, we'll probably put our beans over here. Whole beans do give pretty good shade. Then we'll put a few things after that that like shade, like peppers, don't like to be exactly in full sun, or they get a little sunburned on the pepper.
And celery.
And
celery is the same way.
And then another thing that gives good shade is corn. So then we can put another little section, a couple of rows of corn in, and then things that like shade in the shade of the corn. Things like cabbage and kohlrabi and that kind of thing. Some of the plants that really do like full sun, super full sun, is like onions. Onions need full sun. Carrots need full sun. Tomatoes need full sun. Cucumbers and melons, of course, need full sun. So we'll put those a little bit further away from the shade plants. So to start with, we will get going. The green beans we actually put on poles, so we'll show you that in just a couple minutes.
There's an incredible company called Azure Standard. I've been having an incredible trip out here in Oregon, learning so much about it. This is a place where you can get so much of what you need with your food and know that it's coming from a truly organic and healthy place. They want families to be able to eat food as it's meant to be enjoyed. It's really amazing. You can go to azurestandard.com. I've been really blessed by what I've been learning, so check it out.
How about the layout of the garden as far as, you know, how to make the rows? And truthfully, plants don't really care if they're straight or crooked rows, but we kind of like straight rows, so it's easier to pull hoses down and stuff like that if we need to water. So I don't do anything fancy, but different plants like different spacings, and I mostly do 3 feet and 6 feet spacing on the rows. So green beans will do 6 feet apart. They grow big, they grow tall, they grow into the row. So here's my starting point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I will stick my good old hoe right there, and then we will just make a row. Just make a row right down which is just not too difficult. And then at this end, I'll just do the same thing. 3, 4. And then I can see the hoe sticking up, so I can easily not get off a little bit. I can just sight right to my hoe. It's sticking up, and we'll keep the row at roughly the same distance apart the whole way. So that's a real easy way to keep them relatively straight and clean.
Hi everyone, this is David with Azure. Here at Azure, we believe in healthy and abundant living. We are dedicated to supplying healthy and organic food for an abundant lifestyle for you and your family at a price that your family can afford. Become a part of the Azure family. You can create community around healthy food and healthy living.
Okay, what we did here is we put up bean poles. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I used to actually go cut poles and do actual teepees of willow sticks, which works fine. But then we got, well, maybe a little lazy in this and started doing cow panels. And it works really nice on cow panels because you can actually do a little bit more dense. And so we just put in some T-posts. Kimberly always likes an arch at the beginning of the row because it's kind of cool. The beans will grow up from both sides and kind of dangle down, and it's always fun, and it makes like a little entry to the garden. But so we have an arch at the beginning, more decorative than practical, but it is cool because the beans do grow a lot right there. And then we're tying them onto the T-posts with hemp twine. So the hemp twine, we always like to use hemp twine because it's biodegradable and it completely rots away in a couple years. And if you don't get it all out, when we take the bean poles out, beans go till frost usually here. So by that time it's getting cold, we're about done with the gardening. And a lot of times it's early spring before we get these out. These will winter over in the garden. So sometimes they start to get rotten. You can, if you lose them, you cut them, no big deal, they'll rot away in the biology of the soil. So then the next step is we got mostly starts here for our beans. And here, this is the north side, so any strong winds are going to come from the north or the west. So we're going to put the bean plants on the north side of the cow panels, because that way when they're young and we get a few windy days, they won't blow out into the aisles and then we have to spend a whole bunch of time picking them up and trying to train them. They'll blow against that and curl well. So anyway, there's it. So all I'll do now is hoe a little trench along here, and then we can get started on actual bean planting. So the beans we can put, you're going to put the beans somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 8, maybe 10 inches apart. You can do a little bit further apart than that, but that's, yeah, so that's a 6 inch. The cow panels are 6, so Crystal's going to do basically one at each upward. And then when you're packing them in on beans, as you're watching Crystal and Clyde and Kurt do that job, as they're packing them in with beans, you want them to be pretty close to the crown. The closer to the crown that you can bury them, the faster they'll take off. Put dirt around them a little bit and just pack them in just nice and firm. Don't have to be super fussy about it. They're pretty forgiving, but just a standard firm plant, that's all they need. If you're planting by seed, you're going to want to do just a little bit shallower ditch. You can plant, we do often plant, we had plenty of these this year, but you can also just plant direct seed in the soil. You're going to want to go down about 1 inch to 1.25 inches your ditch, but you're basically doing the same thing. You do a little ditch like this, only not quite as deep, and then put in your seed and just pack it in firm, just pretty much like they're doing that, except you don't have to go around the plant, right? So it's pretty straightforward on beans. The next thing here, since it's kind of going to be in the shade of the beans, is we're going to go ahead and do peppers, bell peppers, hot peppers. So we'll do a little row of peppers here. And so in the case of peppers, I'm digging a little hole for each pepper. It's not real deep. They don't have to be buried much, but we'll just get them set out. And come right out, drop them in. They're good, good to go. Oh my. Did it come out of one root or two roots? Two plants? So if you get two plants with peppers, they're not going to grow real good. Double, so just simply break them apart and they will both grow.
We have a big announcement. We are introducing our new line of organic Castile liquid soaps. And when we say organic, we're talking about all of the oils in our soaps are organic, which I think is pretty unique. Not many liquid soaps have all organic essential oils. We're pretty pleased about that because it's important. So we have unscented and lavender. Those two formulas are made special with aloe vera and shea butter. So they're mild, they're gentle, they're softer. They do a very good job of cleaning, but they're just a little bit gentler on your skin. And then we have the other 5 scents that are made with jojoba and hemp oils, all organic, of course. And the jojoba and hemp oils have become somewhat standard for what a lot of people expect for Castile liquid soap. And we have it in citrus, eucalyptus, tea tree, peppermint, and this special one, which is limonene. Of course, it's organic limonene from citrus peels, and limonene has a little bit of extra grease cutting ability. So if these don't quite cut the grease as much as you'd like, then adding limonene in this formula really is going to help with that grease cutting. We have them in 2 ounces, and we have them in 12 ounces. The 2 ounce is perfect for taking with you on the airplane because it's under the limit and you can take your good soap with you. And if you would like, you can also get these in 3 packs from Azure Well. So 3 packs of 2 ounces and 3 packs of 12 ounces. And if that's not enough for you and you would like to buy in bulk, we do offer under the Azure Clean brand, we're offering the same formulas, but in 32 ounce and in 1 gallon and in 5 gallon sizes. So look for that under the Azure Clean brand. We hope you will give them a try. Let us know what you think.
All right, so next here, after we did the beans and the peppers, will kind of get the shade from that. Basil likes a little more sun, so we're putting that next to the peppers. Basil, when they're in clumps like this, they're, you know, put them 6 or 8 inches apart, but basil likes to be relatively thick. It's not a plant that's, you know, one plant, because it gets kind of coarse. If you want nice, you know, thin leaves that are easy to, you know, make basil out of without having to, or pesto out of without having to do a lot of stemming, this is a good way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and put some basil in here. All these plants, these are all from Ellie's Eden starts. Of course, you know, if you get basil, it probably will look a little bit different than this, because this is some leftover that was going to be thrown away. So we just decided it'll grow wonderfully, but it does have a little discoloration because the leaves got burned. It got watered when it was just a little bit too hot, and it scarred the leaves. But the new leaves, as they grow, will grow beautifully. So, you know, it's nothing to worry about, but, you know, but it doesn't look good when it comes in somebody's box, Ellie's Eden. But all these plants, this is, you know, this is all stuff thanks to Ellie's Eden. They don't send all this over for these plants, and these are all, you know, all available through Ellie's Eden. But when you get the basil, won't have the spots on it. That's just for us. All right, so here we're putting in a little bit of squash. Squash like vines out everywhere, so we're leaving plenty of space, like 6-7 feet apart on the squash. This is the winter squash that vines out. And Clyde here has one special one that he's gonna plant here, so let him tell you about this. This is for Clyde's prize pumpkin.
Yeah, this is an Atlantic giant, and I grew the last 2 years I grew some, and I picked up off all of them off the plant except one. So all the strength of the plant goes into one pumpkin, and then it can get really big, and you can give it fish and milk and stuff. You can mouth feed it, and you can give it fish.
Okay, so what's
And
the
then it
biggest
gets-
pumpkin you guys have ever got? Like more than 100 pounds, right?
Yeah.
How big do you think? Is it 130? What's 136 pounds?
It was something like that. Thank you. There you go.
So here we're going to do our corn. And corn, if you need to do at least 2 rows wide, ideally in your garden, or a little patch. Because if it's just 1 row, sometimes you don't get as good a pollination, wind pollination as you might want. And you'll get some empty spots. So we'll do two rows here of the corn. And then again, corn's another tall weather thing. So then on the other side of the corn, we'll put our cabbage and lettuce and things like that like a little bit of shade. You can also plant corn from seed, probably just, and it really does just about as good, truthfully, from seed as from starts. I mean, most things, it gives them a huge head start. Corn, it gives it a little head start. You're gonna gain a couple of weeks on it. And of course, you know, you'll get perfect germination because it's already germinated. But, you know, you can do it from seed. And if you do it from seed, you actually do about, you want to go down about 1 inch on corn or so. So do a trench, not too different than what I'm doing right here. And just put your seeds in, but put them about twice as close together because it's a lot better to thin. Because it's not, you don't always get perfect germination on corn. And you can then thin the corn a little bit if you do get too good a germination. Compared with like what we're doing here, obviously, you know, we're doing like, should be like 15, 16 inches. This is just Ellie's eating liquid fish. It's not super fussy on your dilution, but you're wanting roughly 2 ounces per gallon-ish. But I don't measure. It's just a dump. Do a little dump like, yeah, like so. And okay, bring the water here. Okay, fill. Whoa, you trying to cool me off? Okay, fill it up with water. So anyone who likes to fish, this is real fishing once you put the fish in the garden. For those of us that you know, that are more on the land than on the water, this is our fishing, right? This is you know, back in the day, the Indians used to put a little fish under the corn. In the modern world, there's too many dogs and stuff around these days, so if you do that, they tend to get them, dig it right up. And so using the liquid fish is the best substitute for that. It's not super fussy about how much you put on, just a little dose. But one of the things, especially in the heat of the day like this, you don't really want to get a lot on the leaves. So kind of pour towards the bottom in the soil part of the plant. If it gets on the leaves, not the end of the world, but it can burn the leaves a little bit, and you'll get some burn spots on the leaves where the fish actually hits it, and then the sun bakes into that. So anyway, that's another little tip when you're fishing. But fishing it's miraculous when it comes to really making a strong, healthy plant. if you have less than optimum soil. I mean, this is pretty good soil, but we wanted to demo fishing because this is because it's something I recommend a lot, and we actually do it, and it certainly will never hurt anything. It's always, almost always a positive, with a couple of exceptions. You know, like tomatoes, you do have to be a little bit careful with tomatoes because it can grow up to too much, too much vine for the amount of tomatoes that's in it, and you can get a little bit off on the balance. Okay, so next, on the other side of the corn here, kind of to keep it in somewhat of a shade, we're doing the lettuce. And the lettuce will put in the shade. We do both kinds of lettuce. So that down there is the variety, like the Ellie's Eden variety mix. And then here we also do the Michelle lettuce because they'll come on at 2 different times. We'll get the regular lettuce. There's like 3 or 4 different varieties, and they come on slightly different times. And then the Michelle lettuce is later. It's a slow bolt, so it'll take a lot longer. And then we will also plant lettuce again a couple of times throughout the season because lettuce, comes on pretty quickly. But we eat a lot of lettuce and greens. So, and we already have some that we planted in the hoop house earlier that we're eating on right now. So this will come on in about 3 or 4 weeks. Be ready to eat. And then after that, then the Michelle lettuce will be ready. And then after that, yes, you can also plant lettuce from seed. If you do plant lettuce from seed, it's a very surface plant. You got to plant it just maybe a 1/4 inch deep at the very most, very surface. It doesn't take hardly any burial of the seed, so it needs to go pretty much right on the surface. But it does have to stay wet, so if you do plant lettuce on the surface, make sure you keep enough water on it until it gets its roots down, which will only take a week or so. But in the first week or so, you never want it to get dry on the top. Stay wet right to the top. That's a good rule for lettuce. Here at the end of the corn, we've got squash right over here, and that's going to vine way out here. But we're going to plant next to this kohlrabi and spinach because kohlrabi is really quick. So by the time the squash gets growing all the way out here, the kohlrabi will pretty much be done. We'll have it picked and eaten, and so will the spinach. The spinach doesn't, it's something that you have to replant frequently. So we'll plant just a little bit of spinach. We don't eat as much spinach as lettuce, it seems like. But it's always nice to have a little spinach garnish. And we will. All right, so now we're doing some onions. And onions have to be planted a little special because you cannot bury the crown on onions. You have to make sure that you're right at the crown, or even make them a little bit high, if anything. Unlike like we just did the cabbage over here, this is the cabbage. The cabbage, you can bury the stem a little bit. It doesn't hurt anything. In fact, if you do, it helps it stand up a little bit better. Not a big deal at all. Onions, if you bury too much of the stem when you're doing a transplant, then the onion will end up being more like a leek. It won't bulb out nicely, and when it's time to mature, it won't mature in a way that the tops fall over and that it nicely gets ready for storage. So you want to make sure that you're planting the onions basically right at ground level. That's probably the one little trick about onions. Otherwise, onions are pretty easy to grow. Also, you can plant onions by seed, which we sometimes do, but we tend to like to do this. The big thing about onions is they compete very, very poorly with the weeds, and they almost look like grass when they're first coming up. So by putting them in like this, we're giving them a nice head start. And so it's a little, we're cheating a little bit in a way, so that they're gonna be way ahead of any grass and weeds, and they'll be very easy to see, and we can hoe right around them. It makes it really easy to do. So that's kind of why we do the onions by start rather than by seed typically. But like I say, you can do it either way. It's fine. It's just a little more work on the weeding side. And since we have plenty of them right here with the Ellie's Eden surplus, we're happy to just get them going right away. And it'll make it a little earlier too, especially on the Walla Wallas. The Walla Walla onions, and that's what we're planting here, is Walla Wallas and Calibra. The Calibra are super good keepers. They'll keep, in fact, we're still eating on them from last year right now. And so they will last a long time. The Walla Wallas are early. So they'll be the onions that we eat right away over the summer. And then the Calibra will be the ones that we eat basically over the winter, next winter. So the next thing here that we're looking at doing is putting in a few beets, and those we'll be doing from seed. So with the beet, we go just a low row. They need to be covered about 1/4 of an inch, and then so just a little bit on your row, and then sprinkle the beets, the seeds in. If you get them too thick, get the rake. Get the rake. If they're too thick, you can always thin out the beets for beet greens. And then after you're done, just cover lightly, about 1/4 of an inch-ish. You know, it's not super particular, but just, and then you just tamp it just a little bit. We usually do it with a rake. You can do it with kind of anything, and that just seals the soil so it doesn't dry out super fast, and it keeps the beets seed wet and coming up. And so this is one that we're doing from seed. We're doing most of this stuff from starts today, but beets, and then we'll talk about carrots here in a little bit, that we'll do those from seed as well. Okay, so now here we are doing the celery. And so with celery, typically, especially for cutting celery and soups, although this is actually regular celery, putting it really close together helps it to kind of grow up and not be just all over the place. So it grows up into a straighter, more usable stalk. Otherwise you have to use shade cloth or something like that. So this is kind of a little trick to make it, think that it's doing, that it's really, otherwise it's kind of small and green and stuff. Back here, right before that, we did a little bit of garlic. Garlic is normally planted in the fall, and this was planted in the fall. But what we did, this is an experiment for Ellie's Eden to see how it does. So this was planted in the fall, wintered over, and then we left it in the cooler for about 2 months to try to keep it, to see how it does for the later season for Ellie's Eden. We know early season will be easy enough, but we'll see how this does. So I guess, if this is successful, we may have another Ellie's Eden product coming up for some garlic, but we'll see how that plays out. Next is carrots, also doing those from seed. Carrots are a very fine little seed. Beets are a lot bigger, but carrots are really small and fine. And so it's really easy to overplant them. This is a little bit old seed, so we're just not worrying about it too much. But so a lot of times we have to thin carrots because it's easy to get them too thick. But remember, carrots are a pretty good size once they actually get there. They do kind of bulge out into the aisles, so it's not terrible if they're a little thick. They just are a little thinner. Don't grow quite as fat. If you get them pretty thin, then you get really big fat carrots. And I can't say that I can really tell a lot of difference in the taste between the fat ones and the thin ones, but anyway, they typically grow pretty good. But carrots are another thing that definitely can't compete very well with the weeds. So they're going to come up, and that is one thing that we will have to spend some time hand weeding. Most of the rest of this stuff we'll be able to hoe around and stuff, but the beets and carrots, because we're doing them from seed, will have to be hand weeded at least maybe once or twice, because the weeds and stuff will come up right with the carrots. They're not going to be ahead, and carrots germinate a little bit on the slow side. Actually, they're not a real fast germinator. Like radishes, they'll germinate. Plant them very similar, but they'll germinate in a few days. They'll be up when carrots haven't even thought about it yet. It takes them a little bit to get going, but once they do get going, they're a beautiful plant. Okay, so now we're doing tomatoes. Tomatoes, we have relatively small plants here mostly, but tomatoes is one of those things that you can cover as much stem as you want. The more stem you bury, the more roots it'll grow on those stems. So no problem to bury stem if you have it a little bit too lanky. In fact, yeah, if you pinch the leaf off, at least you won't have that. And then just a little bit sticking up works really nice. Well, that one's there. I got to get deeper for that. Yeah, so just a little bit sticking out. The other thing tomatoes need is extra calcium. So we'll see there, we're putting in gypsum, which is calcium carbonate. So if you look at it, this is the Garden Pearls gypsum. The calcium carbonate is something that, because it also has some sulfur in it, it becomes more utilizable more quickly to your tomatoes. And we're kind of low sulfur soil here anyway, so it's definitely not a problem. And it really helps with end rot. If you don't have enough calcium in the soil, tomatoes will get like spots on the end, and sometimes they'll even rot. So it's very important to make sure that tomatoes have enough calcium, especially in higher magnesium soils. So here we are just putting to make sure we're giving the tomatoes just a little bit of extra calcium over and above what we gave the rest of the garden. So we'll do that, and then we have some tomato cages. You know how to do the tomato cages? You want to go show everybody how to do that? Okay, so now here we're going to do some cucumbers. And cucumbers, we also, since we had the panels, we decided to go ahead and put them on panels. You can do cucumbers flat on the ground, or if you can train them to go up panels, it's kind of fun because the cucumbers just kind of hang. Instead of having to get on one hand and your toes trying to find the cucumbers in all the vines that go 6 or 8 feet wide, it'll be a lot easier to harvest your cucumbers. Cucumbers are very sensitive, but cucumbers are very sensitive on the stems. The human touch, especially on the younger cucumbers, will sometimes kill the stem and make it rot over. So you want to wear gloves when you're planting cucumbers. There's hardly any other vegetables that really are that sensitive. But for some reason cucumbers are. I'm not totally sure why, but we've just learned by experience that wearing gloves is really a good idea when you're planting cucumbers. Because if you don't, just a good chance that you'll get a stem that will wilt and look like it's, like it's dying. So by wearing gloves and being very gentle, cucumbers are something, most plants are really tough, in all fairness. But cucumbers are one of those plants that's only so tough. They can't take, once they get growing good, all that goes away. But when they're young little starting plants like this, it's a good idea to be real careful with cucumbers. So here we have 3 different kinds of cucumbers. We planted lemons, which is an heirloom. It's one of our family favorites. We've done it for a long, long time. And then we did the Soyu longs and the divas. So Soyu longs are kind of long. They're really fun. Make a lot of nice little round cucumbers. And then the Soyus, on the Soyus, yes. And then the divas are almost like an English cucumber, only they're not near as long, but they're nice and tender and burpless, almost like a English cucumber of sorts. So it's one of our favorites to do in the garden. So, but if you want pickling cucumbers, they're also very similar. But normally with pickling cucumbers, you probably wouldn't put them on a trellis. You just pick those off the ground. They don't have quite as an aggressive of a vine as these varieties do. Okay, so we are ready to do potatoes. And so potatoes, we shovel in, so we'll demo that first, but potatoes, usually we try to prep them first. So Kimberly's doing the potato prep.
Yeah, so we're planting this year some purple potatoes and some red potatoes, and a lot of these are real small. I'll leave whole, but I could cut them because basically all you need to plant in the ground is 2 of these eyes. 2 or 3 makes a nice plant. But when they're really little like this, I just put it in there. And then if I have a bigger one, I'll cut it in half and try to cut around the eye there. And then when we plant them in the ground, we'll plant them with the open end down, and then these will all become the roots and the eyes that grow up and make the mama potato for the rest of the potatoes. So that's what we're doing here.
Okay. So you'll want to go 3 or 4 inches deep. You can plant potatoes shallower, but what happens if you plant them too shallow is that they give their potatoes too shallow and you get a lot of green potatoes. So by going a little bit deeper, it does take them just a little bit longer to come up, but when we dig potatoes, we'll have to dig a little bit deeper, but we will get nice potatoes that don't, that are not on the surface and all green. So that's kind of the one of the little things about potatoes. Potatoes do like, and we already fertilized here, but potatoes do like plenty of fertilizer. They're a pretty heavy feeder. So we'd put on some manure or chicken manure or something like that, which we did until then already. But you could also use fish with potatoes as well. We're not doing that today, but it can be done, or you can also do it after the potatoes are up. If they look like they're not growing at the speed they should be. And potatoes usually grow pretty quick. It's a relatively short crop. One of the reasons we're planting it here beside the garlic is because it is short. Most of except for lettuce and stuff that's shorter, but on that we'll probably recrop that land, or those little plots here in the garden. We'll plant some late stuff or some fall crops later on. But the potatoes will come out and the garlic will both come out fairly early, before the 1st of September. The garlic will come out around the 1st of August and the potatoes around the 1st of September. So then we'll be able to till this up and put a nice little cover crop in here, where the potatoes and the garlic were. So that's one of the reasons that's close together, so we can till a little wider spot instead of trying to do single row stuff.
Okay, so we just grabbed some flowers from Ellie's Eden. These were gonna get dumped. We're saving them and we'll see if we can give them life. I think they'll be fine. Flowers are really hardy, especially ones like these. This is amaranth. I love it. It's gorgeous, especially as a garden flower. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna intersperse them in here because I really like making house arrangements. So I'm going to do this whole row with just all of these beautiful flowers. Most of them are overgrown, but some of them are just really nice, like these violas here. Just lovely. Anyway, it'll be a lot of fun to see how it turns out. I love flowers. It's gorgeous. Make a very sunny garden. This is a Johnny Jump Up, and this is our edible flower. We've got a couple here. It's lovely, very easy to grow, very hardy, and beautiful for salads and stuff. Violas are also edible. They don't grow quite as wild, but they're really nice. These are basically the same plant, different varieties. This is also edible, but it's like really yummy. It's got kind of a spicy radish flavor. Really nice. Nasturtium, yes. This is a nasturtium. This is calendula. It can be used for like herbal salves and stuff, but I like to just pick it. It's got a beautiful, just a sunshiny flower. This is our poor overgrown amaranth, but like I said earlier, it's really hardy. I think it'll be great. You can see the roots are a little yellow, but I think they'll pull out of it. These are black-eyed Susans. These are really nice cutting flowers. They have a beautiful long stem, and they look kind of like a dark sunflower a bit, but they're really nice for arrangements and they last a long time too. The baby's breath is looking a little rough, but we'll see how it does. I'm excited to see how this turns out. It's so fun for arrangements. Status, you can see it already has a little flower on it. I'll probably take that off because
taking the flowers off so it can put all the energy in a plant is a good idea before you plant flowers, or really anything. But this is a plant that will pretty much dry on the stem, and you can keep it all winter long. It's really fun. These little flowers just pretty much feel dry from when they first grow. This is stock, another really good arrangement flower. It smells amazing. It's beautiful, very extravagant looking. It looks like a wedding flower. And you only usually get one flower off of it, but it's so worth it. It's a beautiful flower. This is salvia. It's a beautiful bush. It looks kind of deserty to me, but it has a few different colors, and this is another cutting flower. I like to use mostly cutting flowers in the garden. Celosia, one of the more underrated flowers, I think. They're very nice for arrangements. I already took all the heads off, but they come out kind of like this, and they bring a lot of character to your arrangements. I have a lot of fun with them. Zinnias, everybody probably knows zinnias. They're also wonderful arrangement flowers because they last forever and they're very prolific. We've got a couple of sad little marigolds here, but we mostly put them all over the garden because they're good for the bugs too. This is alyssum. I just grabbed it because I thought it was pretty and it was about to get dumped. So I'm gonna just intersperse it, but it's just a ground cover sort of flower. I probably won't use it in arrangements, but it smells really nice and it's beautiful for your garden. Cosmos, another good cutting flower. Although it doesn't last super long, it's very prolific. You'll have a ton of it. And if you want just a space filler that's very just pretty, throw this in your garden anywhere. It's lovely. Or calendula. And I think that's all of them that I grabbed today. It's gonna be a really beautiful garden. I'm excited. Thanks for joining us.
We had a great day. So glad you were with us.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's always a wonderful day when we can plant the garden and look forward to the wonderful fruits that will take place. And hey, if anybody decides to come on out and join us this fall for the Harvest Festival, maybe you can even help us enjoy some of the fruits of this garden that we're planting today. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Bye.
Bye.